Roll with it.
So great, an airplane wants to come by. Where we're gonna hear all that, but it's good, I guess. You know, we're coming to you from an undisclosed location in the Chilltown bunker. So I'm a little disappointed that you don't have notes. Because I know that you've been researching like I have. So because my notes don't simply involve talking points or whatever. It also involves like some stuff that I've gathered through my research. But you said you do a lot of your shit off the cuff, so that'll be impressive.
I guess when it's my time to like bring a topic to the table, then yeah, I'll probably be.
Oh yeah, you're definitely gonna need it for that. Because for right now, the introductions and I guess we could call this the pilot.
Yes.
This is so we don't really need all that because we already know who we are or whatever. Even though I got some guidelines myself. But this would be, I guess this would be, and so I imagine this as the introductions kind of saying who we are and naturally, but also it'll lead into why are we here? Why are we doing this? What led us to the point where we decided like everyone else to do a podcast or whatever.
Actually, there's not a lot of people doing podcasts. I mean, I guess there are considering what a podcast is, but I think I saw that the percentage was like 30% of the population is podcasting. And that's a lot. It is a lot.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. You know what I'm saying? But people got stuff to say.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's the convenience of it also. Yes. It's not like, you know, you have to go through all these channels and deal with professionals and with professional equipment and whatever. Like we're living in times where we could just do shit ourselves.
And I'm sure that number increased during COVID.
Yeah.
People were stuck.
Yeah. Well, not, and that's also what I learned, that not only did the number increase of people that are doing podcasts, people listening to podcasts. I should have jotted down the figures. That would have sounded really dope. I didn't think we were going to touch on it. But there's a good amount of people that are listening literally to like 6-7 podcasts, me being one of them, even though I'm not really listening to them like that. I have one that I particularly listen to every day, like it's news because it pretty much is news. Like I was saying, we want to start off with saying who we are, where, you know, a little bit about our backgrounds, even though our backgrounds are similar in a lot of ways, because we kind of cross paths and been there early on. We do come from very different places. And then even though I think we went on different journeys throughout our life, we seem to arrive at the same place a lot lately.
Yes.
Which is definitely what got us to this point where we're sitting in front of these microphones with airplanes going by. They hear all of that. I don't know, you want to go first? Talk about a little bit your upbringing, who you are, you know, not too deep. We're not going to get deep yet. We're not going to get naked yet. But you know, in future episodes, it might go that way, which we'll see how it goes. But I'm assuming, you know, just a basic touch on, you know, where we're from, how our thoughts and opinions and ideology developed, and what.
All right, so I'm actually going to come at this from the perspective of what brought us here, right? And more recently, the whole decolonization journey. So, you know, born, raised, urban area, you know, Latina, proud, but definitely raised in an environment that was highly colonized. You know, given the history of the country where my parents are from, I understand why, you know, Spanish, colonial rule, control. So a lot of what I identified with was my European ancestry, because it's there, you know. And of course, as I got older, you know, noticing discrepancies like in the religion that we practiced, and the hypocrisy of a lot of, you know, this hierarchy, if you will, being middle class, lower middle class, but still, you know, so just seeing the hypocrisy of all that, and always being a rebel at heart. Growing up just took me on a journey of learning my history, learning my culture, understanding, you know, that what I was identifying was not necessarily the whole of my cultural identity. And then getting in touch with those other parts and seeing how that even impacts my American citizenship and the institutions here and capitalism and just all that BS, you know. So now we're at this point where I want to say as a collective, people are becoming more enlightened. They're thinking differently. They're coming out the matrix, right? And so just falling into a tribe that does that, again, all along the vein of like following my culture with the music that I do, now being surrounded by people that, you know, we are who we are, we value it, but, you know, we do bring other things to the surface that get squashed by the mainstream media, you know, by our history, you know, bringing to light the whole of my identity. And then everything else, you know, I mean, having the background in the psychology and understanding how even that's
Right.
so colonized, the practices there. Yeah, being on a holistic journey, like with my health, mental health, emotional health, my spiritual journey, you know, it's like a whole balance for me. So, like you said, we come from similar backgrounds growing up. And then, you know, I went one way, you went another. I mean, everybody goes different ways, right? It's not even about right, wrong, good, bad, whatever. We had our paths in life, but we always seem to, you know, come back together lately. So here we are. And I want to say that this has been the strongest anchor, if you will, of our friendship.
For sure.
Has been the whole decolonization journey, understanding, you know, how that impacts us as people, our society, our community, how we even like speak to each other, how we think about, you know, so many different things. So, but yeah, so that's who I am in a nutshell on the surface.
Yeah, because we're gonna dig deeper. You know, I guess that would be the whole point of going forward with this, right? To start digging deeper.
Absolutely.
So I mean, just to get it, you know, to add a little more perspective, we're both born and raised in Jersey City, and definitely different paths. We both went to Catholic school early on in grade school. That's how we know each other. My situation, like, you know, it is different in a way where I'm mixed race. My mother is Polish American and my father was African. And a lot of confusion growing up. Even though I was Black, you know, my skin tone is not Black,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even though you could look at me and you can tell that I'm mixed. So I spent, and I don't think we've ever really talked this, but I grew up with the white side of my family doing everything they could. And I'm not talking about my mother, I'm talking about grandmother and that side of the family, basically doing everything they could to make sure that the Black wouldn't show. And, you know, if I know it sounds crazy.
No, it makes sense.
To give examples, the way I spoke, because growing up, I spent time at both grandmothers, and my grandmother, my father's side, was from the projects, Montgomery Project. So I spent a lot of time there as a kid, and I spoke a certain way, you know, according to my peers, and so I used to get corrected a lot, you know, and I can't even really remember the words or whatever, but you know, you pretty much get it. Sometimes where they found themselves frustrated with me, and I guess they felt that their efforts were unsuccessful at conditioning me to talk a certain way and not be a certain way or whatever, I was called the N-word as a child quite a few times. And not only that, but they talked about my mom a lot. My mom was, you know, in the 70s, she married a Black man. And I think at around the time that they got married, like, you know, interracial marriage was just legal, like maybe 2 years at the time.
Right.
So, I mean, that was on paper, you know, but, you know, I remember clearly the hell that the way my mom was. So that started shaping me early on, you know, shaping me with anger towards racists, you know, but the unfortunately, the first racists that I were exposed to in my family.
Me too.
You know. So.
Me too. Because as a kid, I was like, how you taking me to church on Sunday and you telling me about this guy that sat with lepers and that's love. But then you're telling me, no, you can't go outside and play with those kids. Like, that just didn't reconcile for me. Right. You know what I mean? So yeah, me too.
So, you know, to fast forward a little bit, considering that baggage that I already took on as a young child, I grew up not knowing who I was, but identifying more with the Black side, where there weren't a lot of white people anyway growing up in our neighborhood. So, you know, it would be like early childhood would be spent with mostly black folks, black kids or whatever. And then as I got older, transferred to St. Peter's and started spending more time downtown, which all the love came from Puerto Rico, and that's pretty much how my life has been ever since. So in the midst of all that, at one point, I turned to drugs early on, drugs and alcohol. And at the same time, I was in the street doing street stuff, that came along with that whole lifestyle. I also had a good eye and ear on things that, and started to, question the circumstances that I was in, question the circumstances of people around me, even though I didn't come from a poor household, so to speak, it was middle class. We had everything we needed. We didn't necessarily have everything we wanted.
Right.
But we definitely were exposed to poverty around us and whatever, because there was nothing separating middle class from, more poor people or whatever. Right. So we were all together. And so I started taking all that in. And eventually, years later, in my 20s, 27, I got clean. And,
20 years now?
20 years on September 25th.
Where's the applause?
I don't have the applause. But for the future, I have it. So recovery is depending on who it is, it could be a rediscovery process, getting back what you once had or whatever. And then for people like me that never, started using at such an early age, I never really had anything. I never really developed. I'm not talking necessarily material stuff. I'm just talking about, certain qualities and experiences as a child. And, I never had any of that. So I started to discover a lot of things. And in that discovery process, once I started to learn a little bit more about me and realize that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't some type of moral defect, and a lot of the things that I internalized through religion and just, public opinion so once I found out, that was a great relief, to find out, okay, I'm pretty much a normal person,
right?
That is struggling with an illness. Ultimately, I learned. And so once I worked on that and things started to get better and I started to be, recover, quote unquote, then I started taking a look at what the fuck was going on around me and what has always been going on. And that's what is pretty much what's bringing me here today. Also, I have opinions. I have, anybody that has interacted with me on social media, they know. So, and it's not something that I didn't go down some type of rabbit hole one day and I came out with these opinions. I've learned that they've always been there. I wasn't able to really identify them. Right. I wasn't able to diagnose, what the situation is, So ultimately, what I've learned in recent years is that, a lot of the opinions that I had and a lot of views and a lot of experiences and stances that I took personally as a child and growing up, ultimately, as I've become more educated and done more research and learned more things, I've come to the position where I'm anti-racist, anti-imperialism, and definitely anti-capital. And there's no shame about that. I know a lot of people. So yeah, that's gonna put me on the left of the political spectrum and not just like leaning left, like real deep left. And it goes deeper as I learn more because, what I've learned as being on the left or leftist is there's a lot of stuff to learn. Like there's a lot of philosophy and, however deep, I may choose to go, socialist, Marxism, communism, whatever, and those are things that, and we'll talk about this going forward. Those are things that we've been conditioned to learn as evil and the boogeyman, especially with communists. And we started talking about decolonization,
right?
And which is ultimately the foundation of what we're doing now and where all those things form under because of this, I don't know how you say, Eurocentric or Anglo conditioning. Even as someone who's half white, that type of conditioning that was they were trying on me as a child, telling me that I shouldn't talk this way and, that's not the proper way to speak or pronounce certain things, like I said, that's pretty much where I stand on most things right now, anti-racist, anti-imperialist.
Well, so am I. It definitely shows up differently. Um, Especially in, I guess, how I choose to participate in something that is a platform for Blackness. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It is how we keep the Black history, the Black music, the Black celebration of being Puerto Rican, right? And so one of the things that even in that population is like a huge thing is about representation, because it's easy for me to jump up on stage and yeah, let me show you the music, this and that. But if I can give that opportunity to someone within the community that authentically comes from that, can trace to their great great grandmother, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the first bombera in my family, and understanding our history. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, who am I in this community to be like, there are people my age, like I said, that could trace 2 generations back, like historically. You deserve to be on stage, not me. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
even within my activism, if you will, and how I choose to play it out, there's still an opportunity for me to do more as an ally, and so this is, with regard to the racism. My parents, unfortunately, were the product of Spanish nun education. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Spanish
Yeah.
nuns in the schools in Puerto Rico. And so, they came with their own set of beliefs. And, also as people who, my father wasn't raised by his parents. He was raised by his brother. So at a very young age, he was just pretty much on his own. Like, he just had a place to live, And then my mom at a very young age also was helping to raise her siblings. So we're also talking about 2 people that, from the perspective of having the ability to mature, develop ideas, think outside the box, like, it just, it wasn't a thing. Because again, back then also, what are you talking about? You're talking about educate yourself, raise a family, live well, make money, move to the Americas, get an education. And then that's how we were raised too, But again, there was that disconnect. Like, I'm sorry, you can't tell me that you praise this God, but that God is going to refuse a Black child a cup of water.
Mm-hmm.
And I know why you're refusing that child a cup of water. And you told me, no, go inside. We're going inside. Because you didn't, like, it's a cup of water. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, if it was, one of our St. Peter's friends, name any one of them, you know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Oh, come in. Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying? Even if it was you. So,
even
like, that's what I'm saying. Even if it was, because that, but again, in picking that up is the allyship for me. Maybe I went off on a tangent, but
no, it's fine, because
that's
pretty much what we're going to be doing, right?
Ranting.
We're going to be ranting. We're kind of toying with some names of what this is going to be.
Yeah.
But to talk, just even to talk about a little bit more how we got here. Pretty much I'd say, because right now we are October 2021. So we've been in this COVID era for over a year and a half. And you and I have, even prior to COVID, like just watching our behavior online,
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of taken this same stance as far as our social media activity is concerned. Like, we're, and you could let me know if exactly how you felt. But at some point, I recognize social media of being a complete waste of brain space, right? Like, I don't know, like, if you've been paying attention, but like, especially with Facebook, for like at least a decade, like, I started off on Facebook like everybody else, and, the selfie king, and what I used to do, one thing I used to do is, I used to share my morning readings, my morning meditations, right? And I used to do that. At some point I stopped. At some point I wasn't as consistent with the readings, to be honest. But at some point I stopped sharing them, because people, even though people were reading them, I wasn't getting the vibe. Like, it wasn't, I would get the likes, but I wasn't really interested in the likes, more of the comments. I wanted participation.
Right.
And then, I started, looking around and watching what I infamously started referring to as the fuckery, and just the most silly, stupid shit being shared by grown-ass people, stuff that's been created by teenagers being shared in our age group, 40 and up or whatever. And I was like, I you know what? I don't want to do that.
Right.
That is not fulfilling. It's a waste, and then, then I found out that you can actually use these platforms to stir the pot and share some unpopular shit.
Right.
I started tapping into what I've experienced and what I've, been trying to find my voice with. And these are like social issues, so it really started out with the police violence, like somewhere, around 2012-ish or whatever was like a real situation where Obama was president, and we started getting all these videos of, police violence and, back to back to back. Like, that's when the technology really became prominent as far as the cameras, on the cell phones or whatever. So at that point, I was like, yeah, I want to talk about this. And the more people don't want to talk about it, makes me want to talk about it even more.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I grew up in a household, and I grew up in where politics wasn't discussed. I couldn't really tell you, like where my family fell as far as politically or whatever. And then we come from, and not just me, like we come from a generation where it just wasn't cool to talk about politics, right? Because it stirs some shit up. And so that was a taboo, so especially within family at gatherings or whatever, like there was no, and at the same time, as a child growing up, I'm not politically educated, so that's an issue. And then what I've learned is, as an adult now, been an adult for a while, and as these issues become visible to us in our face, where we can't hide when we're talking about social media, people still want to follow that tradition. Don't want to talk about politics. And what I've learned is because when people start talking about politics and they start talking about their politics, and we're not talking about politicians necessarily, like that's different, but we're talking about our political views and where we fall. Once we start talking about it and once we start sharing about it, we share exactly who we are, where we stand, and everybody doesn't want to do that, right? People, what I've learned is prefer to, on the surface, and you just talked about this a little bit, like on the surface, it's like all love, or everything's equal, love everybody, God loves, Jesus loves us all, Jesus loves you, Jesus loves me, or whatever. But then we find out that our voting behavior is a complete contradiction to what's coming out our mouth, like what's on the surface, right? So we rather, some of us may vote for politicians that that are totally cool with people starving, right? That are totally cool with people that have no health insurance, or, and things like that. To me, that's just not something, I can understand why some people don't want to talk about their politics and their political views. But, and I'll pass it over to you in a second, the Trump era changed all that, right? Because as much as people didn't want to show who they are, they couldn't help themselves. And we everybody says it, like, Trump may not be that racist, that that overt racist, that, there's no, up to this day, we haven't gotten any tapes of him throwing the N-word around, nothing like that. But, we know that he gets a lot of racists aroused.
Yeah.
And that says a lot. And ultimately, what I like to say and what other people say is, the whole introduction to this Trump era, that we came and ripped the masks off.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Off of people.
Absolutely. There was something that you said earlier about when you were talking about your upbringing, and I know I'm going way back in the conversation, but I identify with something that you said because, you talked about that during your recovery, people will either rediscover something or discover who they are, right? And it was almost like you had to go back you had to go back, you know what I mean, in the timeline of your life and kind of reconnect to when's the last time I felt like who I really am, right? And about 6 years ago, when I really started to come into a phase where I had been doing all this spiritual enlightenment, meditating and learning about chakras and energy. And like, I was just reading and absorbing and watching videos and, you know, tapping into different sources. But it wasn't until about 6 years ago where I actually started to go through the tests of what I had been reading about and what I, you know, like actually put it into practical use. And it coincidentally happened around the same time that I decided to move back into my childhood home. You know, the plan was, you know, mom's getting sick. Let me go back home. Let me, you know, help out. I could save to buy my own place. And just, it was very practical, my reasons for going there. But it wasn't missed upon me that I was going back to the place that first saw me. My parents, the home where I grew up, you know, going back even into the room where I slept as a child, you know, so you want to talk about going back. So I specifically remember like just thinking about that. I was like, wow, that's crazy, you know, and again, understanding psychology, you know, and just really going through what I had to go to. So I can identify with that whole discovering, because it was in the last 6 years that I feel like I've become who I've always been. I've always felt like there was this little girl that was always joyful and this and that. And like she was lost for her. She's definitely, and she, you know, but she wasn't a punk either. Like, yeah, haha, she's laughing, but don't sleep on her. She's paying attention, you know? So yeah, but also to go back to social media. So for me, social media started the same. Oh, this is fun. Actually, I didn't even set up my Facebook page. My sister did while I was on my honeymoon. I come back. She's like, oh, I downloaded all the pictures from the wedding on your Facebook. I was like, oh, I have Facebook now. She's like, yeah, I set it up for you as a password. It's fun. I was like, okay, whatever. So it grew that way. Then I divorced. And then that, you know, kicked off a whole chain of events. And then like people noticed, because for me, social media was always about sharing myself, you know, oh, I'm with the family. Click, look, you know, putting my thoughts, you know, what are you thinking? You know, so once that started to change, you know, where I was starting to look in more, then the post started to change. But then that's where I got the engagement. That's where people started to like, you know, oh, I feel you. Oh, my goodness. I was just thinking this the other day, you know, and then that's how the whole heart to heart thing came alive, you know, because it was like, I mean, I know people now that met me because somebody told me to follow you because you do these things on Wednesdays. You know, like, I never...
Which, you know, not to cut you off, but which is also, which I consider like an inspiration that brought us to where we are right now from these microphones. Because I was one of the people, even though I that's not how I met you, but
right.
The heart to heart thing, you know, at least once a week, like 15 minutes just to kind of tap into it. Right. I was like, all right, I'm feeling that, you know?
Yeah. But, well, I mean, that's a lot like the Just for Today readings, you know what I mean?
Same, and pretty much.
There was a lot of times where, you know, there was a point where I was, you know, reading the Just for Todays because I felt like I had to recover from something in my life, you know? And so it definitely helped. But yeah, like then as I started to notice things, right? Because now you're like looking within, you know, you're cleaning up the messes. I'm getting clarity, but I think anybody who goes through this, there's clarity. And you start to understand people more. That doesn't mean that you give them a pass either. You start to understand people more. You see things for what they are, you know, because you are able to deal with reality much better, you know. Naturally, growing up as a child, my parents were like the bomb, except when I was a teenager and a young adult and I knew everything, right? I know.
Like all of us.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, but once I was like, got a job, paying bills, out on my own, rent, whatever, my relationship with my parents definitely got better. And so I was able to forgive them for what they didn't know. You know what I'm saying? They didn't know. They like, I get it. I remember hearing the stories. I remember stuff coming out of my grandmother's mouth. Well, of course, that's their children. Those are the, you know, so anyway, But yeah, in terms of social media, is definitely morphed for me. Again, it's a platform for what I do, which my involvement as an ally. It's my culture, it's my roots. I love to do it, but also as an ally, it's a powerful tool for me. So now that's what my social media is. Even though I don't know, I don't think I'm gonna be keeping it for long. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, not. I mean, not necessarily.
For a lot. Yeah,
that's gonna be definitely
for
a future
later
discussion. But what I will say about your social media and my social media and what brought us to this point right now is some of our unpopular posts where even the people that were feeling our posts before, the inspirational stuff, they don't particularly hit that like button.
I know.
And I noticed it on, I mean, I've been going through this for a while, but I really noticed this on yours because like you mentioned, you developed a certain following with your posts on Wednesdays. So it's like, okay, that everybody's with the positive vibe, right? They like the positive vibe. And when we say positive vibe, they mean that it's something that's going to be non-threatening, right? Something that feels good. It gets you warm and fuzzy, and it's non-threatening. And that's what I'm going to say a lot of people identify as being positive or a positive vibe.
Right.
And so the
toxic positivity.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I didn't want to go into that yet. But this whole positive vibes only, like, and it's because I take that, when people say that, when people have that on their profiles, positive vibes only, that's telling me that you're in a bubble, right? That you're in a bubble and your bubble is strong, and you're not trying to let any reality in that's not going to make you feel warm and fuzzy.
This is also why I've chosen to use the word bruja I identify. And if somebody's like, doesn't that mean witch? Yeah, I'm a witch. A witch is a woman that knows how to tap into her innate abilities and powers, and everybody's is different. And men are capable of the same thing because we're human beings and we're all made of energy, the same as everything around us. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but part of that is, there is a negative connotation to that word, and it's because of a made up story. Probably, I know, is the patriarchy, feeling threatened by these women who, they're trying. They bring this sick kid in. The woman, well, of course, it's magic. Imagine what she could do to someone if she gets mad at you. Of course, they're going to be afraid of a woman with power. So toxic positivity, I broke it for myself because I was going down that path. And it's easy to do that when you're on the spiritual journey. And I broke it for myself by realizing, no, I'm a bruja. I'm a witch. I'm going to use anything and everything and if you think that makes me a bad person, well. Then you don't get it, and that's okay too. But there's definitely, for me, it's all about balance. It always has been. And I was always trying to achieve that. And with the toxic positivity thing, I couldn't break out of it. So I had to sit with my shadow self, with the parts of me that I was trying to, no, let's put a happy post, and it's like, no.
And that's when I come and jump on your post and encourage it, right? Because my posts are the same way. It's like a ghost town, but they're there, they're watching, they're reading, but and a lot of people even in agreement because I'll get the inbox, you won't even hit the like button, but I'll get the inbox. And when I get an inbox that say, something like, continue doing what you're doing, continue sharing what you're sharing, I appreciate that.
Right.
What I don't appreciate is people that also are in agreement, but they're sending stuff to my inbox that they want me to post because they don't want to post it. And not only that, but if I do post it, like, you're not even going to say anything. You know what I'm saying? You're just going to put it out there, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Yeah. I'm not doing that. And another thing I don't do is when I throw stuff out there on my timeline, in my posts, and then you come into my inbox and you want to have a discussion about it or you want to have a debate about it. Like, I'm, like if it was meant to be a private discussion, it would have been. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, take it outside where everybody can see. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? So that naturally, like, as far as posts are concerned, shit was a little lonely And then I noticed that you were getting the same type of treatment.
Crickets.
Right? On your side. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to jump in and I'm just going to, and I'm just going to build on whatever she's saying because I'm saying the same thing and whatever. And I know people are reading hers too, whether they're hitting the like button or not, and that ultimately that just started getting us into a lot of, more discussions and we just keep like egging each other on, whatever. And then we decided at one point, let's try, this is when, COVID really hit and like we weren't going anywhere for real. And we tried to do like an online book discussion thing. And then,
That was after you got me the book though, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, I did. The book on the Young Lords, which...
but that was after COVID. Like that was well into COVID.
No, we were well into it.
Yeah.
We were well into it because I don't remember when I got that for you. If it was your birthday.
It was around Christmas.
Or Christmas. Of 2020, I believe.
Right.
So yeah, we were pretty well into it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going anywhere definitely at the time. So we decided we were going to try to get like a group together, like of like minds, and you had some people in mind. I didn't really have too many people in mind because, you're
lonely out there. You're like a lone wolf.
Yeah. So it was like, you are my people right now. And whoever you bring in will be my people, And so that we had an online discussion, you and I, and that didn't really work out because there was, life was still there. And, I think you said there was some, some challenges with getting people in or people to commit or things like that. So we just continue to have our discussions and, read and books and articles and things like that, which has been like a great connection. And then I had this dream a while back. And the dream is exactly what we're doing here. Except we were sitting at...
You had two dreams, actually. You had two dreams. This was one of them. And there's another one that we still waiting for that one. I'm just kidding.
Sometimes we gotta.
I'm just kidding.
Take some time for it.
Sometimes it's just gonna stay a dream.
Yeah, that's true. But the podcast thing, was really appealing. Like with me, I'm not a somewhat tech literate. I'm on my way around some tech
stuff. A lot
stuff.
more than me.
Yeah, but then you bring all the organization. Except for notes. You didn't bring notes today. So
I didn't know I needed notes.
You don't need them. I just, I just thought you would. But I got you because I did. I took some notes. And once we move on to the next thing, I'm going to touch on some stuff that I came up with. But yeah, this was just pretty much a dream that I had. It was brief. I just had the setting and I had the title. And it was called Ranting with Scoot because some of my childhood friends refer to me as Scoot. And then I shared it with you. And then next thing you know, we're like, I got a microphone. I'm like, yeah, I got a microphone too. And it's like...
You can't say something like that to me. I'm the type of person that if you come to me and you're like, and I see that you're like excited about something and it lights you up, I'm like, bet, let's do it. What do we need?
And I think that's low-key why I shared it with you. Because I wanted you... Yeah. Because in my mind, I was like, all right, it was a dream. It was silly. But I was like, at the same time, it sounds really good and it sounds like fun. And I kind of knew that all I got to do is just tell you about the dream and you're going to make that shit happen. Because that's you. Yeah, that's you. Like, you're going to make that happen to a point where I can't be like, nah, I don't feel like it. And then it wasn't anything close to that. It was like, it went from me sharing the dream to the next thing you know, testing out microphones and software and researching. And I'm like, here we are. And I'm excited.
Good. I am too. I was like, let's do it. I'm like, you know why? Because I'll just try anything. Communication is a beautiful thing. And, there's two sides to communication. There's speaking, but there's also listening. And God gave you 2 ears so you could listen twice as much as you speak. So I've been practicing listening for a while to all the ears that this ends up reaching. Like, great. This is why we're doing this, but also for me, because I'm just listening to you, and then as always, I'm just offering whatever's coming up.
I think we share same feeling. Like there's a therapeutic value in this right here. So this is not like just about putting a podcast together and trying to hit some type of bourgeois level where we're going viral and all that. Like we're not, it's like,
Actually, I prefer if we don't, so I can still walk down the street.
Yeah, right. Stuff, because I'm eventually gonna start getting a little more naked with my stuff.
Bring it.
And I'm still gonna practice humility and everything. Absolutely. But some stuff is just not gonna be pretty, and that's a point of what's bringing me to this table too, where. And I share this with you. I just want to share with people that are listening or potential listeners because nobody knows we're doing this. No. It's like this is a pilot. And
will we eventually be doing this to like real time?
I could see that happening. No, just
putting it out there.
We could definitely get a little more fancy with it. Like we already got tripods and shit like that. Like we could, that it's not like we gotta dig in our pockets and
anyway, with any project you want to start, and then once you get you start to set goalposts. So we'll get there.
Which makes us strive and continue to want to make it better, build it better or whatever, but still keep it simple. So like I said, nobody knows we're doing this. I think I might have told one person, but I didn't get into details. I didn't say with who or whatever like that. We'll probably do a couple of episodes before we decide to go public, I guess.
Unleash. Word.
Right. So, so to the potential listeners, I was sharing with you that another reason why this is important is not to find my voice, because I've already found my voice, but to be able to verbalize my thoughts, my opinions more clearly. Because I find myself, and you'll probably see me every so often, get stuck. And it doesn't mean that I don't know what to say. It's not coming out the way it is in my head.
Right.
Because it's in my head. So like it's my voice is there.
Mm-hmm.
The thoughts, opinions we just share, like that goes back a long time. And I've also learned that I can put it on paper really well.
Right.
I could present it on paper. But I'm at a point right now where I want to be able to verbalize, hit my topics and my points clearly, and this also is important in my professional life.
Right.
Where I'm at a point where, I'm not just this entry-level counselor, inexperienced that's just going to be listening.
Right.
I find myself jumping out there and causing some scenes with some of the things I say in meetings and trainings. And so I want to use this opportunity to be able to be more comfortable and get into the habit of making my points clearly and getting them across clearly. And I think this is
no, absolutely. Verbalize, because especially with social media, we had the opportunity to, there'll be times where I was sitting for like an hour composing a post. Back in the day, you know what I mean? But just wanting it to be just so. And is that part of self-expression? Absolutely. But there was a lot of people pleasing. There was a lot of what's going to get me the likes, what's going to be controversial, what's going to, you know what I mean? But controversial in a way that's going to get me liked, so, but now, I'll just post a picture or a meme and just not add a caption or whatever, I don't even care. It means something to me. And if it means something to somebody else too, then great. But the verbalizing is definitely important. I've always been singing and acting and cheerleading. And I've always felt comfortable doing the public speaking, presenting, I've just been in so many of those arenas for so long. But it wasn't until I got into college and after that I really stepped into the professional world, and really through involvement with my sorority at the executive level, where I then learned more about running a meeting, staying on task. But you'd be surprised, oh my goodness, especially at the company I work at now, how many people are just clueless when it comes to running a meeting. Clueless. Bro, you're dealing with executives that got 12 more meetings for the rest of the day. You better get it together and get your thoughts out, So But it's just a matter of practice. I think you do a good job, to be honest, of, expressing yourself. And are you going to get tripped up? Yeah, I still get tripped up too, So, I mean, I still do that. And in the world of effective speech,
Yeah.
like those are all fillers and you're not supposed to use those,
Yeah.
but
Especially like I get stuck on that a lot.
yeah.
With
And then with my therapist, he told me about whatever. Whatever is another filler on a deeper level, right? Like, but
yeah, because I have opinions about the whatever.
At work, there's times where, especially like I've been training, I don't even know how many times I might have said whatever to this poor woman, and she's like, but if it's whatever, why you telling me about it? Like, why? You know what I mean? So, but again, those are just fillers that sometimes, when we lose. I think you're doing a good job, but hey, practice makes perfect.
Yeah, because I'm a person where I can speak off the cuff. I can shoot from the hip. Like, being in recovery usually requires, not requires, but participating in your own recovery and being part of a fellowship, 12-step fellowship, involves sharing, and usually, the format involves a speaker, that'll speak and share their what we call experience, strength, and hope for a certain amount of time. And then it goes to the floor where people share, for a few minutes each. And I can do that. Like I've done that well. But in a more structured format, in like professional setting, or where there's where you have the points you want to hit, things like that. That's where the and the ums come in, and whatever, and that's probably why I show up with notes now, because I know that if I have the notes there, then I don't have to resort to the and whatever. So I'm like, definitely going to take some notes. And
I think also that people get tripped up because we feel like we have to use big words to get our points across. And one of the most valuable notes that a professor ever wrote paper to me while I was in college was, and it was in a draft, we had to hand in the draft, and then he gave it back with notes, and then we had to update it. And he was like, stop trying to use big words. Just use everyday language. You want your writing and all your communications to be understandable, So think about who is your crowd and who are you trying to be understood by. If you're trying to be understood by a bunch of PhDs, then by all means, bust out the Britannica, and the, whatever. But if you're like, who are you? And not that he's saying I'm just a, but like just down to earth, everyday language. If you can't use everyday language to communicate, then what are you doing? Like what? So, yeah.
So as far as the research that I've done to get here, it's ultimately there are plenty of podcasts that talk to you about how to do a podcast. So, so I really just focused on one and kind of just took some things away from it, which I already, touched on as far as like the purposes of podcasts and what I would like to come out of this. And one, I just mentioned, feeling, finding my voice, being able to, present myself better, in an oral presentation. But then, there was also things that came to mind, and it was to leverage your voice, right? To how can I say, to own what you say, to be able to speak and clearly demonstrate that you may not be an expert, but like I've done some research, I've done some reading.
What you have to say is to be considered.
Right, exactly. Like, like to be heard, like and even if you choose not to, if you're tuned in, you're going to hear me.
Right.
Regardless, So leveraging the voice, I like the way that was worded as far as leveraging the voice. Another thing that I learned from it was talked about gain access and reach others with similar experiences and news. Right. And you and I spoke about that. So we don't know what the audience, potential audience, the size of it could be. But we hope, honestly, we love to gain some type of like-minded following.
Right.
I would like to also gain some people that are going to have an issue with a lot of things we say. People that, but don't don't go in my inbox with the issue. Like if this is in on a platform where there's comment sections or whatever, go for it. Or if we're gonna, down the line where we're gonna invite others in, or we'll, have, in person, and we'll also have virtual, whatever.
Right.
Wherever we go with it, it's not to just have a whole bunch of yes men and yes women,
exactly,
or whatever, because that's not how we grow either.
No.
We need to hear other perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. Definitely to grow an audience and a network. Like I said, like our aim isn't really to go bourgeois status or whatever, but whatever the network is or whatever it looks like, we should share, we're not looking to quit our day jobs, obviously. I just started I got 2 jobs now again. We have careers.
I've been having 2 jobs.
Yeah.
There's one I like and the other one pays the bills.
Yeah. To inspire and to motivate.
Yeah.
We talked about where people just don't want to talk about these things, or they get uncomfortable or whatever. And so I'm imagining people that probably acquainted with us already, that may, feel, it's easier for people that don't know us, but then kind of, grab onto the message, participate with them. People like kind of hear voices that are familiar to them,
right, or
whatever. So I was hoping that we can inspire and motivate, and also get the same type of vibes from anyone that may want to, participate and share,
right,
or just become, a regular follower, a listener, or whatever. Definitely share our stories and experiences like we've already demonstrated. We're going to do that. We're going to go into, the work environment and, all type of things. I'm going to be touching on social media, my issues with memes and misinformation. And, that's a passion of mine. I'm probably going to break down some of the media literacy things that I've been learning. That's crucial, that I would like to, bring here to add some substance to the podcast and take away, because, like I've been sharing, where people, are just not understanding the bad shape and the dark place we're in as far as misinformation.
I think that every topic that we hit, no. I know that for every topic that we hit, you will be able to identify how misinformation impacts that topic or that, area of like humanity right now.
Right. Because it's hitting everything.
And I think we should, as part of, our mission in this podcast, is to educate and, to bring things to the surface. Like I said, on every topic, I'm sure.
Yeah. Naturally, we're going to talk about COVID. We're going to talk vaccines, and we're not going to be promoting, one position or the other. We're, pretty much my thing would be, I'm going to, pretty much let it be known what I've done, which I'm vaccinated. I'm not out there telling people to get vaccinated. I've been telling people pretty much talk to your doctor and your family. Like, exactly. You know what I'm saying? So we're definitely going to touch on that. And everybody doesn't probably want to hear that, but it is what it is. So another thing was, I thought this was interesting also, is to discuss some of life's biggest questions. So that could take us pretty much, anywhere. I can definitely see us reflecting on things that have come up throughout the week or whatever, or just, I have a tendency to just randomly sometimes be like, why do we always say this? Or why do we always do this?
Right.
So those are some of the, what I consider to be some of life's biggest.
Right.
So definitely that. So what else we got here? Leverage self as authority, not an expert. Was talking about, knowing what you're talking about,
right.
not necessarily have to be an expert, but, because we both read. In my later years of my life, I've discovered that reading books is pretty great, and I've also, so I'm always reading at least one book. I tried to do the 2-book thing, we were talking about. It wasn't working out yet. So I'm always reading. Like I have tons of books in the house, most that I haven't read yet. So there's like a to-do list as far as books I want to read. And then sometimes whatever topics or whatever is going on at the moment kind of takes me in a different direction to what book I want to read or whatever. But I have, tons of books, and I love having discussions, so you'll probably hear me like refer to a book that I'm reading or read and with quotes or whatever, because I just love that type of shit when people go into literature and pull things out that's relevant to the topic. Because believe it or not, listening to podcasts or whether it be watching YouTube or whatever, and watching people that, do that, where they'll go into a book or not even have to go into the book. Like they know the damn quotes in their head and they know the authors. And when I hear that and I respect the person that's talking, I'm like, all right, so if he's saying that this book is, this and that, so I find myself always writing down the names of books or whatever. I'm going to get that book right now. I'm going to get that book right now.
No, yeah, definitely.
So it
does make a difference.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that because for me, reading means less time on social media, right? And which is really important. Less time binging on, so I found like I don't binge anymore. Like a show where I would usually binge and I would really knock it out like in a weekend, depending on how many seasons or whatever. Like I'll take my time with it. Like I'll watch an episode or two and turn the TV off and go to reading or whatever, because it's, even with the TV, it's just such a waste of brain space,
I haven't watched TV in I don't know how long. I don't even have cable. I got basic cable, but she doesn't turn on the TV. Like I do not watch TV.
You cut the cord, right? You cut the cord?
No.
You know what that is? Cut the cord? That means where we get rid of the cable boxes and we just stream, like we're not paying cable.
No, yeah.
What's basic? Because what was basic cable at one point of our lives is no longer. Yeah.
I got a really good deal, and I got like
that's how they get you though. Listen to yourself.
Package.
Listen to yourself. I gotta. You've been conditioned to the deals.
I know, but honestly, if I were to go somewhere else and get the internet that I have now, I'd be paying more than I'm paying for.
Yeah, but what happens after 12 months?
It's still. I just want the internet, and they're like, okay, it's double what you were paying because you're on a triple play. Whatever.
This is what happens when they got you on the phone and they're in your ear with that shit. That's how they work.
So then I'm gonna, this has to be a topic because I'm not the only one that needs this.
No, I know, because in my own household, like literally just cut the cord because there's only one person watching regular shows, and not even watching them in real time, using DVR, which makes no sense. Like streaming.
I do not watch TV. I do not watch TV. I have Netflix.
Yeah. See, you're halfway there. Like you have the streaming.
Yes, I do.
So you don't really
Amazon Prime. So I'm good. I don't need the cable. What I need is the
the internet is definitely mental because that's how you stream. Just in case you definitely need the internet. But that triple play, $99, and then that 12 months goes by like that. And next thing you know, it's like $200 or whatever.
No, because I call back. And then I'm like, okay, my $99 is going to be up soon. Yeah. They're like, okay, what do you want to do? I just want the internet. It's going to be $235.
Yeah.
How did I go from $99 for 3 things to $235 for 1 thing?
Right.
Keep it at the $99. No. They've been keeping it.
Yeah. And that's one thing I can say that they started doing that because people like me will bounce and go to the next one and we'll do their triple play thing for 12 months. And then
you see, I can't do that. Yeah. I can't. Yeah. Like I can't.
I did that, but Verizon changed the game and the other competitors, once they found out because Verizon don't negotiate, afterwards. Yeah. It isn't like, no, you can't do the triple play $99 anymore. You have to take you can negotiate and keep it.
If I couldn't keep the price I have right now, I would totally walk.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't have, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, it's not even, it's totally about the savings that I'm getting right now. Because I don't watch TV. I haven't watched TV in years. People talk to me about Love and Hip Hop and the Real Housewives. And I'm like, who? What?
Definitely something we're going to go into a little more.
It's an idiot box.
It is. TV is not really the same anymore, but we'll definitely talk about that in future episodes. Also, what was interesting, poll your listeners and your community on issues and topics. What's going on now? What, so we don't necessarily have to come up with our own stuff here.
Right.
We can kind of like get a vibe if we get, a little following, even if it's 10 people, just kind of, put our finger on the pulse and see, and also see what's, working as far as what we're doing and get input, if we start to build like a community or whatever.
Absolutely.
And then lastly was great way to advertise. And I thought about that and I was like, the good news is I'm not selling anything, or am I, because all sales are not commercial goods. I could be selling you on some ideas here.
Yeah.
I don't care if you buy it or not, So that's
like when you called me and you were like, I had a dream.
Right.
That we were doing a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I bought it.
And we actually met last week,
Yeah.
That was the first test run, and that just involved a conversation without any microphones or any recording, and you lured me here with fish tacos.
And it worked.
Yeah, it worked, and they were amazing. So this may become like Fish Taco Fridays with Scoot or something like that. We don't know yet. We just basically trying to do an audio test here, do our introductions and our pilot to our podcast. And I'm excited. I this is going to be pretty good. Oh, and lastly, what I gathered from the research and people that were giving pointers on podcasts is talked about the level of commitment.
Oh, absolutely.
That
it has to be consistent.
Which I think is a good thing. I know you with commitment. You're good with commitment. I've only been good with 2 commitments in my life so far. The first commitment I've been good with is how to stay out of commitment. I've been really,
say, you're a commitment phobe.
Yeah, I'm really good at that. And when I'm just talking about relationship type commitment, like just it seems like a lot of things that I've done, and it's changing. It's definitely changing. But for the most part, as I look back, I'm an excellent short-term type of dude. Like I bring great short-term energy, right? My short-term game is superb, right? But at some point, whether it be 90 days or it be 6 months or whatever, whether I lose interest or whatever I'm engaged in isn't interesting me, isn't keeping me interested, or I'm not putting in the effort.
Right.
I need to stay excited and interested.
But
if you're gonna ask me like what's gonna interest me, well, the fish tacos already started, right? Right. So
how about the soup and the totones?
That was excellent
the soup and the totones. Okay.
Because I was thinking fish tacos again.
I know.
But I didn't really confirm. Right, but that was great too.
Okay, great. No, but fish tacos definitely for next time. I guess what I wanted to say was that where is it written that something has to have longevity in order for it to have its impact? So there's a lot of things that it's obvious, right? If you want to get an associate's degree, that takes 2 years. You got to be committed for 2 years. The other side of that is you're not going to get your associate. If you want to get a bachelor's, it's 4 years. If you want to be a doctor, it's 12 years. You know what I mean? So there are certain things that it is what it is. But why do we feel like even now, I do bomba music. I've been doing it for 5 years. I know about it all my life. Am I going to be doing it for the rest of my life? I would love to. Do I know if that's what's going to happen? No, because I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow, But I guess this all goes back to a spiritual principle of presence.
Yeah.
Being present. And I think that a lot of people, as part of this hyper-credential system that we live in, right, which gives you your validity as a human being on this planet. How many degrees? How many hours of this did you do? How many, you know what I'm saying? Or like just everything is like, well, how long were you doing that? That makes you an expert. Listen, I know people that have been managing for 20 years and they suck as a manager. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or like I know teachers that are about to retire and they were terrible teachers, you know? Just because you lasted at a job doesn't mean that you were good at it. You know? So I'm just asking you to entertain and don't, feel like, oh, I suck because I only lasted 90 days at this. Maybe that's all you needed of that experience. And maybe that's all that, whatever community you came in contact with, maybe that's all they needed was for you to bring your impact to that community. I'm just saying.
It is interesting that you said that, because that leads me into the other commitment. Remember, I said there were two.
Mm-hmm.
And the other commitment that I've been successful at so far is my recovery, 20 years. Yes. And what you just said right now in the beginning was, there was no picturing like 20 years. Like, right. We have a one day at a time philosophy, right, for a reason. Yep. And that's to stay in the moment, and look, if we're going to look ahead at things, to keep them within like 90-day time frames and keep right. it simple. That's one of our slogans. Keep it simple, Mm-hmm. So, at back then, where I heard of people having 20 years in recovery, clean or sober. But that was just, it was just, I just couldn't imagine that. I couldn't right. see that for myself. But when I heard of somebody having 90 days clean, I was like, I could do that. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to 90 days and there was somebody that had 6 months or 9 months, I was like, I could do that too, because I just had 90 days,
right?
90 days ago, mm-hmm. or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, I can do that. And then little by little, what started out as being in the moment, one day at a time, turned into something long-term.
Right.
So I that's why I held that second part to kind of tie it in, and you picked it up before I even really went into it. And so that, I was joking, as far as the short-term thing,
mm-hmm.
True, with some things, but
that was the bruja in me, though. The bruja knew what the next, yeah.
Right. And this is why you're my partner here. So with the podcast commitment, as far as what we do, our opinions, our things like that, we already do that, right. in our everyday lives, whether it be reading and just, observing or things like that. So that the material part, which for some people may be a big thing to find material, mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to struggle with that. So I don't really know where the struggle would come. We both definitely have lives and careers and things like that. So we'll definitely, the commitment piece will just have to be consistent with meeting up and having the fish tacos ready and we already got the equipment. We'll probably, dabble a little bit more, get some newer stuff, some mic stands, and get better with the audio tweaking or whatever. But it's doable.
It is.
So lastly, as we finish, I also wanted to mention that we'll probably be introducing some type of outro music, which we don't have now. And I didn't have my applause sound effect that I had planned, because I had planned to applaud myself a lot. And of course, my lovely co-host. I just really wanted to use it to get her to do her uncontrollable laughter episodes.
You know what?
Because you did good. You did good.
I can't.
There it is.
I can't.
As we close,
I can't.
But I that has to be part of the, part of the brand. Like, we need to have those moments where, like, you need to laugh, because we need to laugh. Especially definitely. With some of the stuff we're going to discuss.
And you definitely know how to make it.
So some outro music, probably some intro music, and it's definitely not going to be any type of commercial mainstream crap, And,
definitely not. This is all us.
And from what I understand, you may be introducing your own vocals at some point, correct?
Yeah.
So that
got my drum right there.
So,
listen.
This is. I mean, as I look around, we've got stuff to work with here. We got some vinyl. So we definitely, and introduce people to stuff that's not on the bourgeois radio stations that, people want to hear all the time. So, that's going to be a thing that I actually started doing. I started putting some royalty-free type tracks on the side, and we don't have to worry about getting flagged or whatever it is that they do with, copyright issues when we're posting online. So definitely, I started looking into, finding royalty-free music, some jazz, hip hop, instrumentals, things like that. And I'm sure you're gonna bring great tracks, intros, and maybe at one point we'll have like our own intro. I don't know where that's how we're gonna get that, where it's gonna take, but
your podcast voice.
Yeah. Oh, maybe I didn't talk about that, but we'll talk about that next time.
Rants with Scoot while I'm playing the drum in the back.
Yeah, because what I did share was that one of the tutorials that I was researching and reviewing was, the guy said that make sure this was talking about tweaking the audio and getting the audio right, and he said make sure you have your podcast, and I got excited by that, right?
Yeah, you definitely got excited because you commenced for the next hour. Yeah, because
I started sending you audio clips, practicing my podcast voice. Because my voice could be like high pitched sometimes when I get emotional or whatever, and then there could be times where I want to be real deep and I want to. You
were just powerful. Hilarious though, because you were like, yeah, and I was just I'm a podcast voice. I was like, yo, he is so out of control right now.
How do you like my podcast?
I was like, why do I encourage you?
Yeah, because because you was like, yeah, I like it, and I was like, yo, you haven't even heard it really yet. Wait till I really get into it, and I really find my podcast voice.
Oh, you guys are in for a treat.
You're all gonna be through. All right, my love, it's great. We can wrap this up.
Okay.
Thank you to the potential listen, because nobody knows we're doing this.
Yes,
so
this would have been a good applause.
Yeah. So by the time, maybe we could do that, like with the tweaking and whatever. But by the time people hear this, we'll probably already have recorded a couple episodes, 3, 4, or whatever, and some short clips, because we do understand that most people are short span, especially on social media. Like if it's not a meme or anything that 15 seconds in the story, like it's hard to really catch people's attention. So we're mindful of that. And anything?
No, I'm good. I'm glad that we did this. I'm looking forward to doing more.
Same here. All right. Until next time, we are.
Bye.
Later.